The Primarchs are paragons of humanity, each one a demigod with their unique strengths and weaknesses. The series continues with this third episode, and this time I'm talking about the greatest strengths of each of the Traitor Primarchs. While it's easy to say what their strengths are, it isn't always easy to nail down just what is the greatest, most powerful trait they possess. And obviously, this is purely opinion-based, but feel free to attack me all you want in the comments for my takes. Now, getting right into the grimdark, but this time I'm going to count down instead of up, and that means we start with the Hydra. The Alpha Legion Primarchs are either traitor or loyalist lately, depending on which source you're reading from, and while they've done much to save the Imperium, they've done as much to damn it. And while we see in the 41st millennium that the Alpha Legion is loyal to humanity above the Imperium and puts humans first, see Ghost Legion and the New Alliance, Solomon Akura's new empire. They're certainly foes of the Imperium of Man. Alpharius and Omegon did everything they did for the Emperor, but they were charged with infiltration, with sabotage, with espionage and treachery, basically with joining Al-Qaeda. They did their job infiltrating Horus's rebellion and doing what they could to mitigate damage, but the Legion turned to opportunism immediately, and the treachery they pulled off could easily be called traitorous. Just ask the 19th Legion. The Primarchs are solidly villains, both by action and by reputation, even if they do work for their father ultimately. So what is their greatest strength? Adaptability? Deception? Being in a is he alive, is he dead state, Schrodinger's Primarch style? Their ability to be perceived as they wish to be, even as a baseline human, a female, a regular Astartes, or anything else, similar to Korax's ability to turn invisible? I might have a controversial take here, but I don't think any of that is his greatest strength, or their greatest strength, rather. I think the twins are just way smarter than the other Primarchs. I think they're more practical than most, and less emotionally attached than most, being a little further along on the psychopathy spectrum than the others for the most part. I think they're ridiculously smart and cunning, but that combined with their completely cold-blooded approach to everything, their psychotic detachment, means they can accomplish that which the other Primarchs cannot. Alpharius can look Horus right in the eye and tell him a lie that would cost both him and his brother Omegon their lives, were the War Master to find out. And he does it without even the tiniest spike in blood pressure. Alpharius is just cold. We see this when he executes Namatjira, but it is a calculated ruthlessness. He has the psychopath's ultimate dream going on, a supercomputer brain in a demigod body, and an emotional range that has room to care about only one person, even if he is split into two bodies. I think that's why Omegon took Alpharius' death so badly. It was no different to him psychologically than his own death. Cold, calculated, ruthless efficiency, and total emotional detachment from actions that he would otherwise consider distasteful are, in my opinion, the Hydra's greatest strength. Above all else, what is it to infiltrate the ranks of the War Master if you can't look him in the eye and lie right to him? Now, I'm sure that many will disagree with me, and hey, that's fine. But just remember that I am Alpharius, so I'd probably know, though I will admit that self-awareness is a common blind spot and weak point with Primarchs in general. Moving on, we come to Lorgar, and this is kind of boring, but I think when we really look at who he is and what he was made for, it's his oration. It's his ability to inspire, to fan the flames of faith, and all that righteous zeal stuff he's so all about. Lorgar was made to bring worlds into compliance with words, to be the Emperor's voice, to be the bearer of his word, and thus he has the ability to be more persuasive than probably anyone ever except his father. Everything he says can be psychically charged, warp-fueled, honeyed words that drip right in the ear and cannot be disregarded, ignored, nor disobeyed. Yeah, that's pretty scary, and it isn't his mace or his psychic powers per se, it's his voice, which makes the most sense to me, at least, since his voice is the Emperor's voice. If any Primarch was designed to be a cutout, a stand-in for the Emperor, taking his message to new worlds, It was Lorgar Aurelian. He looks just like his father, far more than any of the other Primarchs. I'd say that honestly, he's the most controversial Primarch in many ways, as most people tend to hate on him with a passion, but those who love him really do. I find myself in neither camp. He's fun, but he's not my favorite. There's something about a super soldier that doesn't really want to soldier though, and would rather spend his days singing Kumbaya around a campfire at Vacation Bible Camp. And while that's super interesting, it only goes so far. I want to see him step up and whoop some ass, just out of general fucking principle. I mean, a Primarch needs to Primarch. Take a note from Warhammer Fantasy Lorgar. The warrior priests of Sigmar are priests, but they grab their warhammers and lead from the front too. Listen to me giving advice to fictional characters. Next we come to Horus Lupercal, and this is another case of charisma, but way different. Horus had that rock star charisma, not the whole megachurch pastor, Creflo Dollar sort of Lorgar-ass charisma, but something a bit more visceral. Horus is the guy that people just felt compelled to obey. Now we can make arguments about what his strengths were post-possession by the dark gods, but Chaos Ascended Horus, as the Emperor said, is dead for the most part. They were puppeting his body around, but that wasn't totally Horus. Baseline pre-corruption Horus is really all we can truly measure. Since, yeah, we can look at Horus Ascended as something else altogether, as far from a Primarch as the Emperor of Mankind himself, or more. Horus can win over worlds with a smile. Throw in a firm handshake and a cheeky little wink, and even breakaway empires would fall easily into Imperial compliance. Horus couldn't help but be liked, unless you were Corvus Corax. Charisma just dripped off him like sweat from a Warhammer player walking up a steep incline. Okay, a mild incline, let's not be too generous. It might be trite and it might be too obvious, but it is undeniable. If someone asked me who the most charismatic character in all of fiction is, or was, I would probably respond with Horus Lupercal. As the main big bad of the Age of Darkness, I always loved the character, even if all we got was little snippets and blurbs throughout various Chaos Space Marine codices over the years. But then we got Horus Rising, still one of the best books ever. And the Horus who we see is such a swell guy, like literally one of the best dudes ever. He wears his heart on his sleeve and yet is an absolute pure alpha. But he wrestles with his true nature, wondering if he's a psychopath by design, basically, and is concerned about that. So before he got shanked with the poop knife of Eugen Timba, Horus showed a level of self-awareness that is unrivaled for a Primarch. At least he was concerned with whether or not he was a narcissistic psychopath. Moving on, we come to the Primarch of the 15th Legion, the Thousand Sons, Magnus the Red. I know the obvious answer is just psychic power, but I don't think so. At least that isn't the most fun answer. So Magnus can make himself any size he wishes to be, and his physical strength scales with that. He's the Apache chief of Warhammer. Dude can be a Colossus if he wishes to be, and probably not even Vulcan could step to the raw physical strength he could muster, should he choose to swell his body to godlike proportions. Sure, he's one of the most powerful psychers that ever psychered, and in that way, he is one of the Primarchs that is most like the Emperor. Sure, Magnus could blast your soul apart with some insane warp blast, but he could also swell up to 50 feet tall and stomp on a Baneblade like it was nothing if he wanted to. And I think that nearly anyone that faces Magnus the Red would be first and foremost thinking about the psychic potential of the Primarch, but would be foolish to dismiss his physical prowess. Now, of course, it is sorcery that gives Magnus this power, but I wanted to be a bit more specific than that. Sanguinius might have been able to take out a Titan, but could he have taken out a Titan-sized Magnus? It's just a thought. Now, of course, his sorcery, his galaxy brain, and his raw connection to the warp all play into his strengths, and many would stop right there and call it. But it has always been Magnus's ability to choose his own scale and proportions that intrigued me the most about him, so I'm a bit biased, I'm sure. But hey, if I had the same take as everyone else, then I'd find myself boring. Still, I wonder what the limit of his ability is, and just how big or small Magnus can become, if there even is a limit. Next up, we come to the Death Guard's Primarch, the 14th Legion's own Mortarion. And this one's quite easy. His body odor's his greatest strength. No, but seriously, this guy's a constitution-based tank. His resilience is extreme. The perfect, and in my opinion best, example of this is from the recent Dropsite Massacre novel, when Mortarion and Vulcan face one another on the field, right before Horus has Perturabo nuke both sides. Mortarion takes a blow from Vulcan's hammer right in the jaw and straight up tanks it. He's like, yeah, and? Now I know I just went off about the strength of Magnus the Red, but Vulcan is typically regarded as the physically strongest naturally. Without considering the warp steroids Magnus takes, Vulcan is definitely stronger than every one of the Primarchs. Even Ferris. Yes, guys, seriously, even Ferris Manus. And Mortarion has shown his resilience many times. When he went to face his father, Nakare, on Barbarous, Mortarion wouldn't have been able to get close, as toxic as the clouds were, if it weren't for his god-tier resilience. Mortarion was, in my opinion, downgraded when he became a demon prince. Anyone that can survive a blow from Vulcan's hammer in the face and shake it right off is somebody operating on a whole other level. A whole nother level. And think, Horus nuked not only the Salamanders, but the Death Guard that were locked in melee combat with them, including Mortarion, which also means he survived being nuked, even though he's not a perpetual like his brother Vulcan. That kind of durability is incredible. Truly the Lord of Death Mortarion was before he became a shit moth. Next, we come to the Lord of the Red Sands, the 12th son of the Emperor and Primarch of the World Eaters Legion. Sorry, I've always thought the Warhounds was a better name, but I get it, Angron. In my definitely skewed and out-of-touch opinion, Angronius had one strength that surpassed every other strength he had. Loyalty. Loyalty to those he loved. But too bad everyone he loved and respected and fought and bled beside and wanted to die alongside all died. Angron's heart died when he was taken from Nuceria. He never found other people he really cared about, and rejected his legion for the most part and did not consider them to be his sons in any way, shape, or form. But imagine if Angron had carried that love, loyalty, and compassion that he had for the gladiators of Nuceria into the Great Crusade. Angron was physically strong and a force of nature, but the nails did him so dirty that they basically deprived him of everything that made him, well, him. I actually put the butcher's nails as his greatest weakness in my video on that subject, also part of this series. Although I do understand that some people consider them a strength, I do not. Poor Angron, he actually had brothers, but had to watch them die. And if he could find that kind of love again, maybe his heart would grow 3 sizes and Khorne would let him off the chain to go slaughter all the Who's in Whoville. Now we come to the Primarch of the 8th Legion, the Night Lords, Conrad Curze, the Night Haunter, the edgiest Primarch. Was his foresight, his prescience, a strength? It did drive him insane. This is a hard one, as pretty much everything about Curze is the result of horrible nurturing, mixed with the psychotic nature of his Primarch brain. Many viewers told me in the comments of my video on the greatest weaknesses of the Traitor Primarchs that Curze may have actually been the best fighter of all, and there are certainly arguments to be made for that. But I think that Curze's insanity was his greatest strength. He went through things that would have broken even many of his brothers, and yes, he totally cracked, but he didn't shatter. So the result was a Night Haunter that was totally crazy, but able to hold on to his morality, as twisted as it was. He was anchored firmly by his beliefs in right and wrong, ultimately. At least that's my take on him. But many people discount Curze. I know I have certainly been guilty of that myself. He might have a mind that was sacrificed to trauma and ravaged by insanity, but his heart stayed true to who he was and what he believed, all the way to the end, all the way unto death. And letting Im Shin cut his head off was a total flex. Conrad put his morals above even his own life. He spoke truth to power as often as he could, and I respected him for that, even if he was a pretty unlikable guy. If I was going to paint a traitor army for the Horus Heresy, it would probably be Night Lords, as they do have the best non-Alpharius Primarch model. It's really good on every level and nails the character. I know that take is a bit unorthodox, but hey, again, if I felt the same way about everything as everyone else, I would get bored with myself real quick. Next, I come to the Lord of Iron, the Primarch of the 4th Legion, the Iron Warriors, Perturabo. And this man has a lot of strengths we could talk about. Some of his greatest strengths are also, in the right circumstances, also weaknesses. But I think with the dour Perturabo, we can deduce that nothing is as strong in his hands as command of his legion, of strategy, tactics, and planning, as well as execution of said plans and violence of action. Perturabo is the consummate warrior, where many of the Primarchs are like, I'm the Eliminator, I'm the Exterminator, I'm the Spy, I'm the Logistician, etc. Perturabo's like, I'm the warrior? It's completely basic and lacks any subtlety or depth beyond ankle deep, but it's ankle deep blood smashed from the skulls of his enemies. When I think of Perturabo, I think of him at the Siege of Terra first and foremost, linked into every system, watching the battle unfold, commanding his troops in real time. I would hate to play a game of chess or Warhammer 40k for that matter against the guy. Sure, he's super strong and he can see how everything works just at a glance, even extremely complicated tech, but to me, it is his generalship that is his greatest strength. The man knows how to make war. No glitz, no glamour, just pure destruction. He's not the best duelist of his brothers, but pitting legion against legion, he's a nightmare. The man was the Great Crusade, in so many ways. And last, we come to Fulgrim the Phoenician, Primarch of the 3rd Legion, the Emperor's Children. This guy's considered by many to be the most powerful of the traitor Primarchs that remain in the setting by Warhammer 40k. He's one of the most skilled duelists of all the Primarchs and may just be on the level of the Lion and Sanguinius when it comes to skill in melee combat. But I want to go a bit deeper and say that it is Fulgrim's arrogance that's what his greatest strength is. It gives him the will and the drive to push on and endure, through things that would be difficult even for a demigod son of the Emperor. Fulgrim never, ever really doubts himself, and that's just because he is so full of himself. He's the most arrogant man that ever existed, perhaps next to his father, though it might be that he even surpasses Big E when it comes to how much he thinks of himself. So I think that no matter what other strengths, powers, or abilities he has, Fulgrim's arrogance is behind how well he uses them. He's twisted now, for sure, and chaos has had its way with him, but Fulgrim is definitely still fully all about Fulgrim in every way, on every level. To the point where he is faultless in everything, he's absolute perfection in everything, in his mind. Now, it's also a weakness, sure, but it does underlie all his strengths. This is something that no other Primarch really has, except for maybe Horus. This level of narcissism. The Emperor gave that to the Phoenician for a reason.